Hi, this is an introduction to data meetings for the 2012-2013 school year. This is Tracy Watanabe here. And we are going to have a flipped staff development on our introduction data meetings, which means you get to watch this video at your own time and own pace as many times as you like. And when we get together, we will talk about it again as a staff. The purpose of the data meetings is to reframe our team conversations. So from random discussions at our content area meetings to having a more focused discussion with each person knowing exactly what part they're going to take. Our goal is to introduce it in August, end of August, and set our expectations, identify the roles at team meetings, at our content area team meetings, and then by early September to actually walk through the 7-step sample meeting agenda and to start this process. The overview of the 7-step meeting agenda is to first start with analyzing and reviewing data. The second step, define content area instructional focus. And then we'll set the goals, design an action plan, decide what evidence of learning we're going to collect, and then plan if and how we're going to share it with others. And then we'll close the meeting with clarity. Now let me go into detail of what this looks like. Okay, for step 1, to analyze and review data. The data we're going to start off with at the beginning of the school year is our AIMS data, and if our benchmark data is back as well, we can use both. So, we're going to analyze and review the current data related to the content area trends. So, by our content areas, we're going to look at that data first. Then later, we'll break it down and review what that looks like inside our classrooms with the students we have. But to start off first, we're looking at the trends at the whole content area. The purpose for this is to get a holistic view of your content area and your classroom level trends that are going on about the comprehension of the focused instruction or the assessment for your students. And then as a result, we'll determine if project-based learning, 21st century learning, direct instruction, or a combination of them are needed to address those needs. The second step is to define the content area and classroom level instructional focus. The goals is for academic concerns to identify the presence of an underlying academic skill or concept deficit, to identify the students that you're going to target with the action plan. How many students by grade? You can either list their names if it's a small group, or you can do it by the class hour. The third step is to set the academic goals. The goals should be observable, measurable, and realistic goals for change. SMART goals are an example of this. The fourth step is to design the action plan. So you select at least one intervention or extension that addresses each of the selected concerns related to the skill or concept deficit. For example, project-based learning, 21st century learning to address those needs. And then you need to spell out the particulars of the intervention or extension as a series of specific steps so that the teacher or other people designated to carry it out can do so efficiently and correctly. The content area then has to agree on those interventions or extensions, and each teacher communicates that the plan is acceptable to them. Step 5, you look for the evidence of learning. So each goal must have a student output as evidence of their learning. So for example, a comment on a blog post with hyperlinks to relevant sources to support their reasoning and information would verify that they do know how to support their thoughts.
Because they support it with evidence from the internet to defend their thinking with a valid source to follow it up. That's just one example. Another example is just a student reflection. This will be done on paper. It could be done digitally, like in Google Apps or Screener, Voki, GoAnimate. Or if you have an iPad, you can use the Show Me app or EduCreations apps. The possibilities are endless. Part of the process of collecting evidence of learning is to decide on the formative assessments and decide how and what you're going to communicate back to the students for their feedback.
Step 6, communicating the action plan with others. Decide if parents need to be notified. If so, agree on who will contact the parents and share with the group the student's intervention or extension plan. Also agree what type of contact will it be, a parent phone call, a letter home, and should it be shared with a broader community? For example, maybe on a blog post or maybe through Brian Kilgore. So decide who needs to be communicated with. It also might be just people within your own building that need to be communicated with. So those are the types of questions and things that we'll think about at this step. Step 7, close the meeting with clarifying responsibilities for each team member. So everyone needs to be clear on what their roles are before the meeting ends, and everyone needs to be clear on what the action plan looks like and sounds like in their classrooms. Go over and review the main points of the learning task, the evidence of learning, and the formative assessment plans that you'll be talking about with all the team members. Complete all the paperwork or action plan necessary for the follow-up meetings. Since this is a large process for us to go through, it will be much easier if we break it down so that each person has their own role within the team, and that way when we come together and go through this process, it's much easier. So let's talk about the roles next. The first role is of the school administrator. Administrators play a leadership role by supporting and protecting the meeting times and efforts. Instructional leaders also attend to the change process. They really support the staff by building that culture of communication, gathering the input, and creating order by providing specific routines and procedures. Instructional leaders can't do it by themselves. They go back and share with their own team of leadership, and that way they can support the site better. A facilitator is the next role. This role changes over time, but in the beginning, it's more about helping the communication for this change effort so that we get used to this routine of data meetings. And the facilitator also brings people together so that they're not working in isolation, but so that they're working as a cohesive unit to address the students' needs. The facilitator will really help with setting meeting times, developing agendas, determining effective processes to involve all the team members, and facilitating the communication within that team. And then later, the role becomes more about the teams functioning together, looking through data, coming up with their plans to address the students' needs. Next, look at the data mentor. The data mentor is the person with the expertise in collecting, organizing, displaying, and analyzing and interpreting data. This person is not the only person working with the data, but they're the person on the team who is the go-to person to help organize that process. The data mentor should have the necessary skills to present the data in easily understandable visual displays, such as graphs, which means they probably have to do a lot with Excel or possibly with the Google Apps spreadsheets. Initially, the data is set by the administration, so this at the beginning of the year we'll be looking at the Ames data, and if we have benchmark data as well, we'll look at those two together. Throughout the year, that will change with what you've set as your goals. The next role is the content specialist. Really, decisions can't be made without understanding the content. So this person in this role needs to make sure that his or her thinking is overt to help describe what they're thinking, but also why they're making the decisions they're making. This person will also be the team member who makes sure that when new curriculum materials are obtained, that everyone is properly trained on how to use it. They'll check up on everything to make sure that the curriculum materials and strategies are used the way that they were designed to be used. Some key decisions to include are which instructional strategies are most effective to area concern, whether it's for deficit or for enrichment. These decisions can't be made without someone on the team with an expertise in the content being addressed. Some things that this person might do is bring resources that might be needed. Have resources bookmarked and shared in Digo. Bring a copy of the actual assessment. Bring some other specific materials that will address the skills or concepts being built. There will be other people to tap into as well. For Common Core, you'll have your Common Core coach. You'll also have your title instructors as well. So there's lots of people to tap into, but you still need a content specialist amongst your team there. Everyone still brings their own ideas about content to the plate, but this person, that's their responsibility and their role. Next, we have the staff liaison recorder processor. This can be one role, or it can be separated out into several different roles. You should be the key person for communicating with the staff who are not members of the content team. So you might be communicating things that you talked about in your meetings, the action plan in particular. You might break this into several different parts. For example, you might have one person communicate back to the staff. You might have another person communicate to the public, whether that's through Brian Kilgore or a blog or your Facebook page. And you might have another person communicate through contacting parents. You'll have to base that on the conversations that you have at your team level. You'll also have someone recording the action steps and taking notes throughout the meeting so that we have everything documented, so we can all go back to the same Google Apps page or wherever you want to document that, so that you all have the same plan to look back at. Next time we meet, we're going to talk about which of these roles you believe fits you the best, whether it's the facilitator, the data mentor, the content specialist, a communication liaison, and recorder. It's up to you, but I would like for you to go ahead and think about which one of these fit your strengths the best. Some frequent questions that come up are, how often can we switch our roles? Really, we want you to stick with a role for at least a semester, and then we can revisit. And the data meetings, going through all 7 steps of the process, are about 3 to 4 times a year based on the summative test data, but it'll be an ongoing process. All those follow-ups afterwards, you're going to keep meeting and talking about what things work and what things you want to develop from there, what things that you're finding. So it'll be an ongoing process based on the outcomes that you see. And initially, the first meeting is going to last longer because we're all new to this process. But once we are used to this routine, it will really tighten up. The action plan should be a minimum of 4 weeks. Sometimes it's a shorter time with longer minutes per day. But you need to really consider how long it takes to gather the data in the first place, and the dates are totally based on that action plan. So let the data from the team decide our meeting schedule and when the follow-ups will be from that.
Next time we meet, we will quickly review the roles. We will decide on a role, and then at the end of that, we will create a to-do list based on our role, so that when we start this process, we bring to the table exactly what we need to bring. Thanks so much.